Very happy morning to all. On behalf of Department of Radio Diagnosis, NKP Salve Institute of Medical Sciences and Maharashtra College of Radiology, the unit of Maharashtra State Branch of III, I, Dr. Avinash Dog, HOD Radio Diagnosis, invite you all to today's workshop on portal venous system and renovascular system. As you all know, we have conducted workshops in the month of August on peripheral arterial Doppler, color Doppler, and in the month of October we have conducted workshop on fetal interventions where various procedures of related to fetal interventions carried out. Models were used which simulates the real organs. Now coming seeing the response of the previous two workshops, we are overjoyed to arrange this, and we are focusing on the smaller aspects which are little ignored or which are little less covered as far as the color Doppler is concerned, but these are very, very important. Now, talking about the portal venous system gives you very important information about the hepatobiliary status, and the renovascular system, renovascular color Doppler also is very skillful. Three things are very important as far as the renovascular system is important: your technique, your patience, and proper patient's compliance. Today we are focusing on these two aspects. Today's faculty is Dr. Prashant Onkar. He does not need any introduction. Conducted the last two workshops very successfully. May I now invite Dr. Prashant Onkar to proceed with the scientific program. And again, I welcome you all to today's session on portal venous system and renovascular system.
Thank you, Avinash sir. In our series of this online workshops, live workshops on various aspects of the color Doppler, this is our fourth session. First, we had conducted on peripheral arteries, upper limb, carotid. Second was on venous system, and third on fetal interventions. So, as there was demand of having more and more such events, and as due to pandemic, the live sessions, on-site live sessions are not possible, we have found out this way to present you with various workshops, and I think this would be useful for students and junior radiologists. And the main motto behind these workshops is the continuing education even in this area, this period of crisis. So today's program has two parts. First, we would cover the portal Doppler. We'll have a brief lecture followed by demonstration. We have some cases of portal hypertension. Those would be live demonstrated. And then we would do a lecture on renal Doppler, short lecture, followed by demonstration of renal Doppler cases. At this point, I must thank NKP SIMS, our Dean, Dr. Kajal Mitra sir, our Professor and Head, Dr. Avinash Dog sir, who had been a very strong support in organizing these events. They have permitted, and definitely our postgraduate students who always are very enthusiastic in finding out cases, following up them, and of course organizing the events. So let's move to the first part, that is a lecture on portal Doppler, and hope you would enjoy it. Thank you. portal venous system evaluation is quite frequently advised, as portal hypertension is quite common, and we all in our practice must be doing them. And since undergraduate level portal hypertension has been taught, and we know that the portal system is a bit closed system. It's not directly connected with heart in either way. So the portal system comprises of the spleen, splenic vein, and SMV. They conference to form the portal vein. Then the portal vein divides into right and left, and they further divide into the segmental portal veins. Then liver, and along with hepatic veins that draining into IVC, these also form to the portal vein. Some smaller veins like the coronary or the left gastric vein also form part of the portal system. So whenever there is portal hypertension, there may be many causes for the portal hypertension, and they can be classified, or they are classified, as prehepatic causes, hepatic causes, and posthepatic causes. And on ultrasound and Doppler, many of them can be very well diagnosed and followed and evaluated in a very nice fashion. So why ultrasound and portal Doppler is advised in a suspected case of portal hypertension? It is to know the cause of portal hypertension and to have an information which is either a baseline information, that means a first scan when in a case of suspected portal hypertension, or a follow-up scans or follow-up ultrasounds whenever patients have symptoms. Symptoms may vary, as we know. Patient may present with only splenomegaly, or patient may present with hepatic failure, or with ascites, or sometimes hematemesis. Portal ultrasound and Doppler along with CT scan is also useful in pre-transplant, pre-hepatic transplant evaluation, or pre-TIPS procedure evaluation. It is said that we can predict the presence of esophageal varices by certain parameters on ultrasound and Doppler. We will see this later in the lecture. And of course, the complications of portal hypertension, like ascites, like pleural effusion, or sometimes we get hepatorenal syndrome, that can be very well evaluated by ultrasound and Doppler. The advantages of ultrasound and Doppler, apart from bedside availability and other non-invasiveness, etc. This is the only investigation that gives a very comprehensive information. We can have detailed information about anatomy and its variations, the causes, the effects of the cause, and presence of collaterals. Most importantly, Doppler is useful in giving us information about the flow direction that no other investigation can give this information, the flow characteristics in portal vein, whether it is hepatopetal or hepatofugal or absent flow and all. So these are definite advantages of ultrasound and Doppler over other investigations, and definitely it is of immense use in follow-up of such patients, because as such there is not much treatment available, and many patients they do come for follow-up. So how to start it? Always ask history, because patient may have been investigated before, or patient may had some symptoms and had been subjected to imaging. So ask for old imaging, it is available. If available, just you can go through it. We can start with ultrasound of the liver, look for the size of the liver, and look for how is the parenchyma, whether the echo texture and other nodularity, etc. Specifically, you should look for margins. Margins of the liver may not be very well evident by using regular convex probe, but you can use a linear probe, and through intercostal you can see the nodularity very nicely. And the presence of ascites facilitates the visualization of nodularity in the margins. Secondly, hepatic veins can be evaluated either during suspended respiration or in shallow breathing, whether they are showing normal triphasic or quadriphasic flow, or there is a change in flow pattern. We should always look in the area around the ligament teres for a dilated patent paraumbilical vein, which is a pathognomic feature of portal hypertension. Next comes the porta, where we see the portal vein. We should look for the size, how are the walls, what is the direction of flow, what is the velocity. And as we all know, while doing any color Doppler, whenever we talk about velocity in any vessel, let it be vein, let it be artery, you must always do a angle corrected spectral Doppler. Next, we should evaluate the splenic vein and the superior mesenteric vein that confluence to form the porta behind the head of pancreas, and at the confluence we can see the insertion of left gastric vein or the coronary vein, it is commonly called. We should evaluate their size and do the Doppler. Then pancreas we should evaluate, because pancreatitis is a very common cause of portal vein thrombosis and resulting into portal hypertension. Spleen is frequently enlarged in portal hypertension, so size of the spleen, splenic index, sometimes it is length into breadth, we can calculate, and it can be used in certain ratios. Next comes the site of collaterals. Yes, collateral presence is again a diagnostic feature of portal hypertension, and common sites, they depend on the location of pathology. For example, if there is only splenic vein thrombosis, you will get collaterals in splenic hilum, maybe lienorenal and peripancreatic area. If there is only portal vein thrombosis, then you can get the collaterals at maybe paraumbilical vein, maybe GB, fossa, or maybe peripancreatic region. So they are varied, but all locations you should look for, because you do not know what is the pathophysiology or what are the changes that has happened. And as we know, the collaterals can occur at many places, at least 6 places known. Most of them can be evaluated by ultrasound. And of course, ascites and other complications we should look for. Coming to liver, again surface nodularity is highly sensitive and specific for liver cirrhosis, and ecotexture is overall coarse. There can be heterogeneous, there can be nodularity in the liver also, as seen here. Then certain ratios are given, that is caudate lobe width to right lobe width. This is better seen on a CT scan, but they are quite specific in diagnosis of cirrhosis of liver. And it is said that the reduction of the transverse diameter in the medial segment, that is segment 4 of the left lobe, if it is less than 3 centimeters, you can take it as a cirrhosis. We need to be careful while reporting cirrhosis. If the liver size is almost normal and there is no significant surface nodularity, but it is heterogeneous, then we have to be careful, because once we label it as cirrhosis, usually the patient is labeled lifelong as a cirrhotic patient. So be careful while reporting liver cirrhosis only on ultrasound. Next comes the portal vein. It is it can be measured right from confluence up to the porta, but some people say you should measure them where the hepatic artery crosses the portal vein. Usual diameters are 13 to 16 millimeter, and there is increase in the diameter in deep inspiration and with food. That is one of the reason why we ask the patient to come nil by mouth and do it early in the morning. It shows hepatopetal flow, that is the flow will come towards the liver, as seen here, the red flow. On the spectrum scale we see the red flow is coming towards the probe, and the venous flow is coming towards the probe. The mean velocity can be 15 to 18 centimeter, but it is a variable thing. So phasic flow is seen in a portal vein. You see respiratory variation, it is called undulating. It's a monophasic, it will be always on one side of the baseline. This is baseline and this is towards the probe. The portal vein flow can be pulsatile, as seen here, where the minimum, the difference between maximum and minimum is more, and then if the intrahepatic pressure increases to a certain level, then slowly the flow will be reduced and it may be absent. Further increase in the intraparenchymal resistance will reverse the flow, as seen here. See this color scale, red is towards the probe, blue is away from the probe. The direction is blue and the portal vein is showing a reversal of flow direction. Some authors have mentioned about congestion index of portal vein, that is the cross-sectional area divided by mean flow velocity, and they said it is specific, but this has not been further ratified by many more studies, because the getting cross-sectional area of portal vein is a little bit difficult, and there is a lot of variability in measuring the portal vein cross-sectional area. Sometimes we see that there is no flow in the portal vein, so we must rule out whether technically we are wrong. For example, the angle is not correct. We all know that if the vessel makes a 90-degree angle, the Doppler shift will be 0, and as the vessel angle between the probe direction or the angle of insonation, as it reduces, the Doppler shift increases. So the angle should be less than 60 always, and then we can check the pulse repetition frequency or the scale, what we call it. We can reduce it to obtain the flow. If it is not seen, you can use the power Doppler, which facilitates the visualization of slower flows. And still, if you don't get, ask the patient to do Valsalva and to release. So this can initiate the flow in the portal vein. Still, if you don't see, then we can label it that there is no flow in the portal vein. Next vessel is the hepatic artery. It generally shows low resistance flow and a diameter of around 5 millimeters with peak systolic velocity and RI as shown. Sometimes the resistivity index is increased. What that means? That means the diastolic flow here, that will reduce due to the increased parenchymal resistance, and that can be due to many conditions, but the chronic hepatocellular disease or cirrhosis is one of them. The low resistivity index means the increased diastolic flow. This is usually seen in shunts or when there is cirrhosis with portal hypertension and collaterals. The collaterals will reduce the pressure a little bit, and then it can have more flow. Next are the hepatic veins. There are 3 hepatic veins. They confluence into IVC. It has got triphasic flow with a little bit reversal in the atrial systole, and in the ventricular systole and atrial diastole will be towards the lower side of the baseline. This S wave is always bigger than the D wave. You should measure it in either suspended respiration or minimal or quiet respiration. And in portal hypertension, it will show portalization of sort of flow, where the minimum velocity that will increase, and this ratio, they have given a ratio of damping index of hepatic veins, that is the minimum velocity by maximum velocity, and the normal is 0.6. If it is more than 0.6, they say it is indicator of portal hypertension. So the phasicity will decrease. It can also decrease in Budd-Chiari syndrome, because the Budd-Chiari syndrome is due to the IVC, the post-hepatic cause of portal hypertension. The IVC is either there is membrane, or there is due to some reason the IVC is obstructed, and due to the back pressure, the minimum velocity will increase, and then we can see this type of flow. Versatile hepatic vein can be there due to right heart failure or tricuspid rejection, again due to congestion received from the right heart via IVC, via hepatic veins, via the parenchyma. One more important vein, that is the left gastric vein or the coronary vein, it is called. It originates from the portosystemic vein junction. This is a sagittal view, that is the splenic vein, and we can see this left gastric vein. It has almost a regular course or straight course for significant distance, and it is quite easy to visualize, especially in cases of portal hypertension. And we should look for the flow direction in all the vessels, especially this left gastric vein, whether it is hepatopetal or bidirectional or hepatofugal. So what findings constitute the diagnosis of portal hypertension? It is the continuous flow in the portal vein, sometimes with loss of phasicity. Some authors refer this as an early sign of portal hypertension, that the velocity is straight. You don't see variation like seen in a normal vein. A dilated portal vein with less flow, or less flow means less than 15 centimeter per second, and reversal of flow, yes, it is very much diagnostic. along with portosystemic shunts. These two are very much diagnostic of portal hypertension. Additional findings like hepatic artery resistivity index that is increased, that means the diastolic flow has reduced, the hepatic vein velocity if it is increased, and hepatic vein waveform as we have seen monophasic or blunted where the minimum velocity has increased. Other findings which aid in diagnosis is the cavernoma at porta like seen here. You see multiple vessels that feel on color Doppler, and we can see a bunch of vessels that is called cavernoma. This is usually secondary to the portal vein thrombosis. The enlarged SMV or the splenic vein more than 10 millimeter is an additional finding, and we measured them in the deep inspiration. Again, loss of respiratory variation may be seen in the SMV and splenic vein, but that may be difficult to evaluate. Another important finding is the recanalization and hepatophageal flow in the paraumbilical vein. This is quite commonly seen, and once you are used to see this, you cannot forget the presence of dilated paraumbilical vein. Hepatic arteries, it is said they show corkscrew appearance, but this is not very definitive. And yes, increased velocity is many a times seen that compensates the decreased portal vein flow. Other findings include splenomegaly and ascites. The use of Doppler in prediction of esophageal varices has been studied by many authors. And apart from clinical features like palpable spleen or low platelet count, the splenic size more than 13 to 14 centimeter, the dilated portal vein, dilated splenic vein, the portal vein velocity with reduced portal vein velocity, and an index has been postulated, that is the splenoportal index. What they have done is they have measured splenic dimensions and Doppler of the splenic vein velocities. The splenoportal index is the splenic index, that is the length of the spleen and width of the spleen divided by mean portal velocity, and it has been postulated that value of more than 3 is quite suggestive of presence of a esophageal varix or esophageal varices, and we should advise the endoscopy for such patients. Very few times we are required to do Doppler when a patient presents with acute liver failure, and in many of them with the increased portal vein flow is seen, and there is the portal vein cross section area increases. Of course, splenomegaly, ascites, and patient may have renal involvement, pleural effusion, and other findings. So variable findings are there on the basis of etiology. Etiology, especially pre-hepatic etiology, is a little bit variable. Most common cause is definitely cirrhosis of liver or liver parenchymal disease, and due to this, we should look towards various findings, and a combination of these findings can make a diagnosis of portal hypertension. With this, we will do a normal demo of portal vein system on the machine, and then we will see some cases. Thank you.